Welcome to another episode of the Shadows and Ink podcast. And today we are talking about the noir detective and horror. And our guest is JP Behrens, and I'm going to let him introduce himself today. And so take it away.
Hey, I'm JP Behrens. I am the author of the Travis Daniels investigation series, as well as Portrait of a Nuclear Family and the collection, the short story collection, We Don't Talk Anymore, and other dark fictions. That's about it. Yeah, just writing stuff and trying to write more and get things out and publish and show up at shows and such as that, and rock some Cthulhu style.
So tell us a little bit about your series, Travis Daniels Investigations.
So the Travis Daniels investigations follows the titular character Travis Daniels, who is a private detective in the late 1920s, early 30s. He's had a rough time of it. He gets kind of roped into a first case with a missing girl, and that's his first encounter with the supernatural and Lovecraftian horrors. After the first book, he's on the run and he comes across a murder that kind of devolves into a mystery involving Native American werewolves, Canadian Sasquatch, and a greedy lumber baron in the Pacific Northeast or Northwest, Pacific Northwest. And now I'm working on number three that takes place a few months after the end of number two.
Okay. So, what influenced you to write a noir horror series?
I have always been a fan of noir. I've always thought it was really fun. I kind of always liked the voice and the character and the really grungy sort of anti-hero hero that he's kind of like really rough on the outside, but ultimately when you get to know him, he is a nice guy. He is trying to do the right thing, but he's working within a world that is lots of shades of gray, which I always found kind of compelling and interesting and fun. And I've always wanted to write a noir, and when I came up with this idea, and it fit really well into the same kind of world as Lovecraftian horror did, so that came about as the first book. And then I realized, oh, this has the potential to be in a series, and then I started coming up with ideas for, like, oh, what would other cool cases kind of be? So it kind of evolved from there. And then I really like the show Carnival, which also kind of has a noir feeling during Dust Bowl America, and went, oh, I'm going to do that too. So I kind of just merged it all together, put them on the road, and now it's Carnival meets Supernatural meets Sam Spade. So it's just kind of all over the place, and it seemed like it's so far it's been fun. So the big thing now is to get it in front of readers, and hopefully they'll have fun too.
Yeah, Carnival does have kind of a noir feel to it. I get that.
Yeah.
So, what do you feel are the essential elements that make a good noir book?
when I first thought of that, I was always joking in my head that I remember when I was in film school in college, my teacher always said Venetian blinds. That's how you tell a noir. And I was like, oh, I kind of want to throw a Venetian blind joke somewhere in the series, so keep an eye out for that. But I think ultimately it's you have a character who is very pessimistic about the world and the people in it, but at the same time still has enough hope and optimism left within him that he's trying to still find the good or protect the innocents in the world that haven't been corrupted by the world at large. You also got to have, character. You have to have the nefarious villain who's either very greedy or very flawed, but has power over everyone. And is this kind of like, the hero is definitely fighting an uphill battle. And I think your endings have to be equal parts hopeful and tragic at the same time. So even when you win, you still kind of lose. So I think that usually is what makes up a solid noir for me. There's never it's never clean cut. It's always a shade of gray. It's a gray. The ending's never going to be 100% good or 100% bad. It's going to be kind of in that gray area where you may have won a little bit, but you definitely lost something as well.
Yeah, and interesting point about the villain. I hadn't really thought about that, but you're right. The villains in noir are always um, powerful people, greedy corporations, or mafia type
Yeah.
bosses, things like that. So yeah, that's an interesting point about the villains. So, a large part of noir detective novels, whatever genre they're in, is style and atmosphere. So, how did you go about building that gritty ambiance into your books and then mixing it in with a horror quality?
So I kind of cheated. I openly admit I cheated. I used Lovecraft. The Lovecraft world and that whole kind of that whole feel is already kind of built in with that kind of not with that kind of stuff. You've already built in that whole concept of, you have this very amoral, kind of unfair world that you're in. There is no higher power that's looking out for you. Everything is basically doesn't care. And you're left to the fate. You're left to your own fate and your own devices, and you're just in a world you need to struggle forward in. And for Travis, that's a world that he's been living in for years. So it doesn't change too much beyond the fact that now he's got to integrate all of this supernatural stuff into his worldview, and he very much resents it because it's just this whole new thing that he doesn't want to deal with. But now he just keeps kind of falling into it. Uh, Getting that gritty style just really kind of fell in with Lovecraft, and once you kind of have that, it's very easy to carry it over from book to book. Uh, and again, it's and also I'm cheating by kind of sticking it right before the Great Depression, where that's kind of where the country was going, was dusty and gritty and downtrodden. So kind of jamming him right at the beginning of that, going forward, he's just going to be in that world and struggling through it like the rest of us. But now you have supernatural elements that are also involved with the Great Depression and struggling through it with humanity. So you're going to have a lot of desperate people on both sides of both natural and supernatural. So it should be, I'm hoping it creates a really cool, interesting way of going about supernatural investigations and crime when both humans and supernatural and preternatural creatures are suffering through this massive economic downturn.
Yeah, it should be interesting. So, how easily did the supernatural elements meld into the noir genre? Do you think noir and
Very
horror are a
easy.
good fit?
Yeah, very easily. It's super easy to Lovecraftian goes right into noir, no problem. Uh, Throwing murder mysteries in there and adding in some societal aspects of it and clan wars and things like that. It all kicks in real easy. It's not super difficult to shove horror into noir. They both share a lot of the same kind of environmental aspects, the same sort of overtones and that dark, gritty nature to them. They meld together very, very easily, which was, again, I cheated. It was which one of the things I was like, oh, this goes together very easily, like chocolate and peanut butter. I don't have to really fight this one. This is going to go together, and I don't have to like kill myself trying to like shoehorn it together.
So, how did the cynical attitude of the detective, because you think noir detective, you think cynic. It pretty much
Yeah.
goes, how did that cynical element fit in with the horror? Because I mean, sooner or later, he's going to have to stop being cynical and realize, yeah, this stuff's real.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you can be cynical and still admit this stuff is real. I think he's cynical in that, oh, this just confirms my worldview that the world is out to get everybody and there's no goodness and there are still innocents and I have to protect those innocents. But this just kind of hammered home like, yeah, the world sucks and I'm stuck in it and I'm just trying to get by. And again, every time he runs into this stuff, the only reason he sticks to it is because he's just looking at it going, I can't let I can't let all these innocent people down. I need them to. I'm hoping that they will, I have to protect their innocence. I have to protect them from these horrors that I've already been exposed to. I need to deal with it. And I think that's where the optimism kind of kicks in a little bit of he's cynical, he's pessimistic, but at the same time, he wants to protect people. And so he's going to protect people from more or less becoming him. That's his kind of his main goal is I don't want people to be like me. I want people to maintain that hopeful veneer of like that hopeful veneer over the world and keep that outlook and not, and try to save them at least a few more years before they kind of come to the realization that all of this it's a rigged game for him. So yeah, and I think a lot of the characters, all a lot of like very famous noir mystery characters have that same kind of. Sam Spade is like he lives in a house, he's comfortable, but he just looks at everything like it's a con. But when he gets involved in something, there's always somebody in there that he's trying to protect from
Yeah,
realizing the world, that life is a con. You know,
yeah, definitely. So, what okay, I can't talk today. Uh,
okay.
what supernatural elements would you not use for a noir mystery? Is there anything that's kind of doesn't fit the noir aesthetic?
Not that I can think of. I mean, I've come up with ideas for all types of random stuff. Like I've kind of got an idea for Chupacabra. I've got an idea for vampires. I'm working on a ghost story. I think I think yeah, I don't think there's any supernatural element that I can think of that I can't twist in some way to like just slip it very easily into horror or slip horror into noir. Uh I think horror very much like lines right up to noir in almost every aspect. I haven't any ideas that I've had, I haven't come across anything that I wouldn't be able to shove into noir. The hardest part is lining up a crime for him to investigate. Excuse me. That I need him to investigate where he gets into the crime, into the horror part of it. Because he's never looking for the horror aspect. He's never trying to find the supernatural. He keeps stumbling upon it when he goes into these investigations. So finding the crime that he's investigating has been the biggest challenge. And I get a little loose on that with some of the ideas of like kind of investigating a crime. And one of them, he's running and he's just on the run and he kind of stumbles into something and goes, oh, come on, really? And like he's just frustrated by the fact that he's like, are you really like, of course I walked into this. Why wouldn't I right now? So it's just like he's just constantly just shaking his head going, of course it is, why not? And and it's oftentimes he's just kind of falling into it. So yeah, I've got a lot of different ideas. I want to do a zombie thing, but I want to do like voodoo Haitian zombies. So I think it was there was a movie about it. I'm trying to remember. It's like Bill Pullman's in it, and I can't think of the Lair of the White Worm. I think it is. So it's like I've got a couple different ideas and things I want to do, and really play off of. I don't want to use normal zombies. I want to use something that hasn't been used a lot in fiction. So voodoo zombies and Haitian zombies and stuff like that. I want to kind of jump around and use a lot of different kind of more obscure versions of the different of the different supernatural stuff. And then I also want to kind of, have maybe a book where I have, traditional vampires versus Brian Lumley vampires from space and kind of like have them clash and do stuff like that. I want to have a lot of fun and really kind of pull from all different sectors and just kind of shove it all together and see what happens. I love a good mashup. I think they're fun.
Yeah, I could see the zombie thing because like a New Orleans style noir would be fantastic.
Right. And so it's like I've got the ideas. Is like again, it just comes down to I need to find the crime. And once I
Yeah,
get the crime and I kind of get the investigation going, I can kind of pull it together. I just need the villain, the crime, and I'm putting together a mystery book, really. It's putting together a mystery and then just injecting a whole lot of genre horror into it and just adding that in and getting that kind of be one of the 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 unexpected elements of the case.
yeah, the mystery part can be very definitely the most tricky part of writing that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I've got a couple outlines and things like that, and I definitely outline a lot of it, so I kinda go into it knowing what I'm doing. It's just, it's coming that takes the longest part. It usually takes me a couple days to really hammer out the details and get the red herrings and put the case together and then go, "Okay, now I can write the story, and I can set up all the different, possibilities and stuff."
Yeah. So noir mysteries often have a first person point of view.
Mhm.
Do you think that's indispensable to the story, or do you think a gritty noir can have a third person point of
No,
view?
you can definitely do a third person. I mean, I originally wrote the original short story in third person, mainly because I was really bad at first person at the time, but then I did it in first person because I wanted to see if I could, and I just happened to really like it in first person, so I stuck with it. But no, I think you can do a third person noir, no problem. There are plenty of them out there that have been done that way, and they're all really good. It's just a different kind of way of coming from it and coming at it from a different direction. But yeah, no, I think it leans towards the whole first person thing. But in the second book, in Murder in Monashi Mountains, there's a chapter from Leslie's point of view, and that chapter is third person. So as I do more characters and as I do more stuff in the books, there's going to be characters who get their own chapters, and that's going to be first person for them.
Mm.
That's
So
gonna be second per I was gonna be third person because it's gonna be not Travis. So, as I get away from Travis as the main narrator in certain chapters, I'm gonna have a third person going and doing stuff.
yeah, so the loner persona is a common perception of the noir detective. And so this rough and rugged outsider who gets the job done. But how do you stay true to that trope and yet still build the strong character relationships and developments that modern readers want?
I mean, because, Walden, as we read in Walden, no man is an island unto themselves. Travis has a past. There are reasons why he kind of tries to stay separate, but when you're working on a case and you're investigating stuff, you have no choice. You have to talk to people. You have to build a rapport. And eventually, I mean, there's going to be people that he gets along with, whether he wants to or not. But for a lot of these books, each case is very transitory. So he only has to get along with them and build a relationship with them for the short period, for a short term. The trick is when you start putting in long term relationships in the stories. And I think in some ways, like the way you're doing that is you have the character almost reluctantly accept that or look at it as almost a responsibility and accidentally start caring, something like that. It doesn't take much, but I mean, every private detective, and ultimately every private detective story I've ever read, they always have somebody that they build a relationship with, and then that's usually part of the bad part of the ending. That's usually part of the tragedy is that he finally finds somebody, and then something happens. So that's like you play with that, and it just gives you another tool in the toolbox to build drama, to build conflict, to really drive the character development home and give your character something to learn and even give them a lesson in a way, but also give them another reason to kind of pull back on the next one. And then, you make it a little harder for them to connect, but ultimately they're always going to connect with someone. You have to like there's no way you can investigate something that's serious and spend a lot of time with somebody investigating something without building some kind of relationship with them, whether that relationship is positive or negative. You're going to have feelings for somebody in some regard. So that just comes along with just playing by human nature. You're gonna get that in your stories.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, even if it's just the respect building
Yeah,
between colleagues and things. Yeah, I can see that.
exactly.
So, your books take place in a historical setting as
Yes.
opposed to the modern day. And do you think that's an advantage for writing noir, especially if you're setting it in the 20s and 30s era?
No.
Um, so,
No. I have to research way more than I ever want to. No. The first book was easy because I was doing Arkham and I just pulled up fake maps and I'm like, here we go, map, go nuts. The second book, I was using a real town and a real area, and I did an absurd amount of research on the town of Tonasect and Okanogan and the tribe of India, the Okanogan tribe that exists and existed at the time. That the reservation that it happens in the book exists today. There is a history to it. I get to change some stuff up for the purposes of my book, but I still want to be respectful and true to what they went through and who they are. And getting their language right and doing all these different things that I did, it took a lot of research and a lot of pulling from newspapers, pictures, making sure the roads were accurate, versus are they asphalt, are they dirt, where does it change, do the highways of this or this or this, what's the driving time in this old car, because I don't want to, today it might take 15 minutes, back then it would have taken an hour, because the cars don't hit the same speeds. So there's all these different kinds of things that you have to take into account, and the research part of it is a mess. And even with all the research, you still are going to make a mistake here and there, and someone's definitely going to see it and be like, "Oh, that's a little anachronistic." Somebody did on Minishi Mountain. I made an offhand comment, and someone said, "Oh, that's anachronistic." Nobody said that at that point, and I'm like, "Okay, I tried, guys." I was so focused on physical places and things like that, and like an idiom kicked by, and readers would be shocked at how many idioms I go through and edit out of those books every single time I go through, because I realize, like, oh, that's an idiom that definitely wasn't said back then. And there's couple always slip through, and I'm like, okay, like I didn't realize that was an idiom. My bad. So it happens, and it's frustrating. So yeah, doing it in the past is rough because there's some little details going to slip through, and people are going to jump on it immediately. So you almost have to be a scholar of the time period and the speech patterns to not make the mistake. And there's just only so many hours in a day that I can read and write and hang out with my family. So little mistakes always end up getting through, and it's very frustrating when I'm like, it's like I got 15 of them out and I missed that one. It's very annoying to me.
Yeah, it's you have to go through in the editing, you're going through, "Wait a minute, did they actually have that word back then?"
Yeah, and
And then
like I
you
said,
can
most I get like 99% of them. There's always just
yeah.
that one freaking detail that slips by, and I'm like, I didn't realize that was an idiom. My bad. Like, oops.
Okay, so but do you think a noir story set in the modern day has to work harder at the mood than a one set in historical times?
It depends. I mean, if you're in New York City, no. I mean, if you put it in a city, Chicago, New York, whatever, you can have that mood pretty well. I think if you stuck it in like, Colorado, or like a medium size, like a rural area, or suburban area, you'd maybe have to work a little bit harder. But honestly, no, because there's plenty of modern day noir that comes out, and it's just, instead of it being, dark lights and Venetian blinds and shadows, it's instead ominous feelings and towns that don't seem right on the surface, and there's this weird kind of boiling underbelly in this seemingly bucolic town. You get that feeling really quick if you build it right. So you just have to build it in, like, oh, the town seems on the surface to be all happy, but we know underneath it all, it's really dark, and you can develop that pretty easily and pretty quickly, I think. It's just a matter of knowing what you need to do, and knowing how to how to flip that script a little bit, and just knowing what you're doing when you get into it. And, again, just reading a ton of noir and getting a good idea of the feeling. And there's, like I said, there's plenty of modern day noir that you can pick up and read and get an idea that was well done and go, okay, I see how to do that. And then just go in and do it. It's just like, luckily, none of us are working in a vacuum. None of us are coming up with anything wildly original. There are older there are books out there that have done it fairly well, that you can read and go, "Oh, that's how you do it." And then you go and do it your way. But you
Yeah.
have an idea, you have a foundation, and it's just a matter of going out, finding the books and reading.
Yeah, I would think big city detective in a small town would make a nice noir setting
Yeah.
too, because you've got that isolated, insular small town with
Mhm.
the outsider coming into it. So
Yeah, with lots of secrets. All you really need, a lot of secrets, and just this weird dark underbelly. So, and that's really, I mean, I grew up in a small town. I can tell you that that exists everywhere.
yeah. So social issues and politics can often be found in noir. I know you've added some to your series. So how do you navigate the sometimes tricky issue of combining those elements into the storytelling?
A lot of research. Just an absolute metric ton of research. A long time ago, I figured out, like, one, I own a lot of books. I own something like roughly 3,000 books. I've read probably 1,500 of them. The other half are on my bookshelves. So if I finish a book, it goes into a box, it goes into storage, and it frees up space on my bookshelf for all the new books I keep buying. But one of the things I realized was I was focusing on fiction. I wasn't reading a lot of nonfiction, and I have a ton of nonfiction on my shelf. So I realized I needed to start making like a reading regimen. And so I flip between fiction, nonfiction, and go back and forth fairly often. And I read a lot of history books. So I kind of go into it with an understanding of this is the history, this is what occurred. And whenever I pull some sort of political thing, especially for the 1930s, it's almost always based on something I read, and it's very much framed around or founded on a thing that occurred. So for the mountains, for Murder in the Monoshi Mountains, it's very much it's outlined very much after what happened to Native Americans in Killers of the Flower Moon, and I use a lot of what happened there, and it helped me start my research for the Pacific Northwest and look at what happened there. And it wasn't the same, but it was similar enough that it helped me with my Google searches and it helped me refine my research to know exactly what to look for and to see what was happening. And luckily, Killer of the Flower Moons, the book talks about this is what was going on in the rest of the country. Therefore, this is what these guys did. So I just went, oh, so that was going on in the rest of the country. Perfect. And then kicked over and said, let me see, did that happen there? Yes, it did. And then I can just build from there. And it's not difficult. It's just a matter of, read a lot, read good creative nonfiction, especially about historical events. And you'll have a decent background in how things happened in the US and in the world in general. And you'll be able to pull from examples, like from examples in our own history and say, oh, I can use that. I can play with that and adjust it just enough to make it a fiction story with werewolves and Sasquatch, but at the same time, touch upon some of the things that happened to these people and to this tribe and these different tribes in Washington State that broke them in half and we stole land and all this other stuff. And you can comment on it. It just takes the research and it takes a little bit of respect for understanding what happened and a respect for the truth and just looking at the facts rather than the commentary. It's one reason why I never read any special interest books. I don't read. That's one of the few things I won't read is current events, because I feel like current event books are always straight opinion and editorializing, and I'm focused more on just the documentation and the facts, which there are a handful of creative nonfiction writers that are very good about just sticking to the facts and using quotes and just and but still crafting a very entertaining story in the process.
Yeah. So dialogue is an important part of noir fiction, and it's known for terse, snappy exchanges.
Mhm.
So was that something that flowed naturally for you, or did you have to work at it?
Honestly, that's one of the things that I've done very well since I started writing. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I read a ton of comic books growing up. Comic book dialogue is exactly that. It has to be fast, it has to be snappy. It can't you're not finding word bubbles that take up a whole page unless you read an Alan Moore book. But generally, you're not finding word bubbles that take up massive pages. And so you read old school Marvel and DC, some of the dialogue, especially if you read like the older Stan Lee stuff, is can be corny, but there's a rhythm to it that has been perfected over years. And you start reading stuff now, read some of the stuff from like the 90s, the early aughts, read the really seminal books like Death in a Family, Death of a Family, Batman. Read all those things and you'll get great. And there are just some amazing comic book writers that exist today. Brian Vaughan, Kieran Gillian. There's these great writers that you can pick up their books and read and be like, oh, that's how you write dialogue. So read a ton of dialogue. Read plays. Plays are nothing but dialogue, and there are playwrights who are known for their snappy dialogue. Waiting for Godot. Read that. You want snappy kind of noirist absurdist dialogue. Waiting for Godot is perfect. But you'll pick all that stuff up. There's plenty of resources again that you can pick up and read and learn it. Comic books is a great way. Plays are a perfect way to do it. Go see the plays that you read, and you'll learn. Shakespeare. Read Shakespeare. Again, just don't focus on the monologues, but focus on the sections where there's a lot of like wordplay back and forth. When Mercutio and Tybalt fight, it's a great scene to get snappy, quick dialogue that's witty and back and forth and quick. You just have to find those scenes, and there's tons of them. They're in Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet. Oh God, Taming of the Shrews got a ton of that. So and Midsummer Night's Dream, tons of great snappy dialogue. It's really easy to find it. You just have to go and study it and read it. And I've always been a big proponent of the two things any author needs to do to be successful is write a lot and read a lot. You need to write for practice and to get better. It's like any muscle, you got to train it. And reading is the way you learn the techniques that and learn the better techniques that you can now train for your writing and like see things and go, oh, that's a cool technique. I'm going to use that the next time I'm writing and learn until you get good at it.
Yeah, I'd add Frank Miller to your list of comic book authors
Frank
as
Miller
well.
was a phenomenal writer of dialogue. His
Mm,
Daredevil run, SimCity or
yeah,
SimCity, Sin City. All the Sin City books are fantastic. Dark Knight Returns. His more modern, the more recent stuff hasn't been great, but his older '80s
yeah,
and '90s stuff was fantastic.
yeah.
100%.
Well, I'm old, so I read the older stuff.
I've read all of it. Like I'm a kind of a hardcore completionist, so I kind of keep reading stuff until you start writing things that are so bad that I'm like, okay, I'm done now. Which kind of Frank Miller got to that point. I'm like, I'm done with you, sir. But yeah, Alan Moore has great stuff. Like, read a lot of comics. Comic books are one of the best ways to learn dialogue.
Definitely. So, what authors do you feel are the biggest influences for the noir detective genre?
Oh, Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler by far. I also really liked Elmore Leonard. I don't know if he's super noir, but I really dug his stuff and I kind of pulled a little bit from him. Uh I really like the move China. I love the movie Chinatown. I think that's a fantastic movie. Two Jakes is but yeah, I think those are like the biggest things. I also, and also I kind of pull a little bit from Hitchcock. Alfred Hitchcock presents the show. There were some really cool noirish type of episodes in Alfred Hitchcock presents. And then there is a kind of pseudo noir book by Ray Bradbury called Let's All Kill Constance and Graveyard for Lunatics. Those two are really good, kind of almost modern day noir books that you can pick up and read. I really enjoyed them. So yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely say there's a noir feel to Elmore Leonard
Yeah.
with his police things. I haven't read the Western things, but I've read some of his police, like the books that the Justified was based on,
Yeah.
and
That's a good
uh,
way to do modern noir.
yeah,
It's Elmer Leonard. Yeah.
yeah, he really does have a good feel for the dialogue, especially.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned Chinatown. So, what other noir movies are you a fan of?
Oh gosh. I'm trying to remember. It's like I watched so many movies back in the day. I'm trying to remember them all. Chinatown's the one that always jumps out at me. The same thing with the two Jakes. They did was it HBO just did Monsieur Spade,
Yeah, yeah,
which I thought was fantastic.
yeah, it
I love
was.
Sin City. Sin City's very noir. Uh like actually when we're doing auditions right now for the audiobook for Murder in the Monashi Mountains, and I keep basically saying Clive Owen. Give me Clive Owen. That's who I want. Hire Clive Owen. Like just do that and we're good. So yeah, that's been like the driving, like if it doesn't sound like Clive Owen, then no. Just to Clive Owen. So yeah, God, movies. What do I got on my shelf? Like, yeah, I don't know. It's like I remember seeing, oh God, like Sunset Boulevard, like a lot
Mhm.
of old black and white stuff that I watched in growing up. Like I watched growing up and I watched in my film classes. The mailman always rings
Oh, Postman
twice.
Rings Twice.
Yeah, Postman Rings Twice. Lots of that old, those old night, those black and white 1930s, 1940s noir weirdo stuff. Strangers on a Train, stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. They all have a nice noir feel.
Yeah.
So, what's your next project?
Well, I'm working on book 3 of Travis Daniels right now. That is the current project because I need to get it done so I can rewrite it so I can get it to Crystal Lake on time so it can come out next summer. And then also I finished up a rough draft of an urban fantasy that's kind of like a worldwide adventure type deal. That that's going to take me a little while. I already kind of suspect that it might take me 2 or 3 years to get right because it's far more ambitious than I thought it was when I first started writing it, and then went, "Oh, I've made a mistake. I'm going to take some time to do this." I'm looking at doing a dark fantasy novella or novel. We'll see how long it ends up being once I'm done. And I'm still kind of inching my way through my fantasy, my high fantasy novel that's part of a series that I just once I finish up the edits on this next round of edits, I need to find people that are looking for that kind of thing. Hopefully I can find a publisher. Hopefully. If I can't, I'm probably going to end up self-publishing it as much as I would really like to find a publisher. So we'll see how that goes, or an agent or something. So yeah, there's definitely things I'm working on. I'm still posting on my Patreon. We'll see how long that lasts. Part of the Patreon thing is I'm spending so much time with it that I'm slowly falling behind on other things. So I have to figure out how what I'm gonna do in the future with the Patreon versus, making sure I get Travis Daniels 3 done on time and also have time to do other projects on top of the Travis Daniels series. Because if the fantasy thing gets picked up, that's a 7 book series plus an eighth book of like short stories that I have a plan for. So that's a lot going into it. So I'd be like, and hopefully I'd be doing like a book a year in both. So I'd have to get I'd have to get 2 books out a year. And the Travis Daniel books keep getting longer. Every time I come up with a new idea, it's way more complex than the last one, and I'm like, oh god, this like it's going to stop being novellas. It's going to very quickly become novels because I can't. I keep coming up with these really advanced ideas, so I'm like, I need to lay back. I need to figure out like how we're going to tone this down a little bit.
I don't know. Those books will go whatever length they want to go sometimes. So,
Yeah, I'm just
yeah.
like I just keep like I'm just going to be apologizing. I'm like, I'm so sorry. This one is 100,000 words. I don't know why. Like, I apologize.
Yeah,
I don't know what happened.
I started a short story once that turned into a 3-book trilogy,
Yeah.
and there's probably more trilogies coming. So you never know what's going to go with these things. It
Yeah,
just
we'll see.
does what
I'm
it
like,
does.
I'm gunning for still 30 to 40,000 words on the number 3, but I'm getting real close to 30 already, and I'm like maybe a little past halfway. So I was like, oh god. I was like, all right, let me see how this goes. So I'm just gonna write it, finish it, and then I'll look at it and figure out what I got to do. But yeah, it's interesting. It's something, and I'm like, I'll send you what I have when I'm done. Figure it out. So yeah, I'm just kind of winging it. I'm just having fun. It's a rough draft, so I'm just trying to get it done, get it out, and then I'll go back and work on something else. And I'll come back, and by hopefully the end of the year, I'll be sending in number 3, and then starting the plot out number 4, so that I have a plot ready to go when number 3 comes out, and I can start getting writing on it once I'm done. Once I'm done a rewrite on something, I'm working on something next. So I'll take a break from Travis Daniels, work on something next, and then come back to Travis Daniels to get it finished. So I'm hoping by
Okay.
the end of the year.
Okay. On that note, we will end the episode, and I'd like to thank you for being a guest today. It was a pleasure chatting with you as always.
Thanks you.
Okay, and that's it for this episode. And bye for now, everyone.
See you later, guys.